Hello art enthusiasts! Welcome to my channel. My name is Julian Patani from FTGE6. So for today's video, we will be talking about the insights and lessons that I've learned from my art appreciation class. It will be extra special because, as you guys may know, our term is coming to an end, and I would love to reflect back on everything that I've learned in this class, from the elements and principles of art to the various art movements, and as well as art and how it connects with society. So without further ado, let's begin. First off, let's start with the insights that I've gained from the elements and principles of art. I realized that these elements and principles of art are essential for us viewers to understand the message that an artist wants to convey through their artwork. They're not just chosen randomly. Intentionally silang pinili kasi each and every line, stroke, color, contrast, emphasis, and the other principles and elements, they mean something. They have something to symbolize. And when we are aware, when we know what they symbolize, it could help us form a better understanding of the message behind the artwork. And so, like for example, jagged lines could create tension, and using muted colors could create a somber tone. It helps elevate the message and deliver the message easier towards the audience. I also learned that these elements and principles are not just tools for the artist to use to create art. They're also there to guide the viewer's eyes. They're there to help structure and organize the ideas that an artist wants to tell, and they help create a narrative flow. The elements such as lines, shape, movement, they guide our eyes into how we're supposed to look at the painting by establishing a narrative flow, establishing the direction that our eyes are supposed to follow, so that we can look at the artwork the way that the artist intended us to look at it. And so they help us sort of read the story of the artwork. And they also help emphasize which details should we look at first and which details should come next after that. And lastly, after doing our presentation on the elements and principles of art, I realized that they do not limit artists to a set of rules. Rather, they're there to serve as a guide, as a support for artists to explore, to find their own style, their own voice, their own identity. For example, Keith Haring's On the Shoulders of Giants, which we use in our presentation, as well as Fernando Amorsolo's Fruit Cellar, are very different from each other despite having the same set of principles and elements. It's just that they learn to combine, to use them differently and uniquely from each other, allowing them to find their own style, allowing them to find which combination of principles and elements suits them best, helps them express themselves best. Next, let's talk about the insights that I've gained from the art movements. First off, I realized that art changes alongside the world, constantly adapting new technologies, cultural shifts, and historical events. The artworks reflect the advancements of their time through introducing new techniques, may it be through new materials, scientific discoveries, and even philosophies. And if you guys notice, the environment, the subject, the imagery, they all change according to the environment of their period. And so it also reflects the emotions and the values of that era. And this is where I realized that art is not static, it grows alongside us. I also realized that art often emerged from challenging the ideas and rules of the previous era. It shows that these movements are related to each other. Impressionism rejected precision. Cubism challenged perspective. Dadaism questioned the meaning of art itself. And so it shows us that changes is driven by rebellion and redefinition, as every generation tries to find ways to push boundaries on how they can express themselves that is unconventional to older frameworks, and they redefine what art means, redefine how we people look at art, and they create a style that becomes representative of their time. Lastly, learning about the art movements humanized people of the past for me. Rather than seeing them as just historical facts, I started to see them as a fellow human who had hopes, ambitions, dreams, fears, which are often visualized in the artworks. For example, in Expressionism, we see that they had a lot of emotions to express just as we do. They had inner conflicts, they had turmoil. And for pop art, we see that they had a fascination for mass media and consumer culture. These movements show us emotions, feelings, and beliefs, values that often facts alone cannot convey. Lastly, for the modules, we will be talking about my insights from art and social issues. So, after our lesson on this, I realized that art is not just a powerful medium to communicate, but it is also one that humanizes problems that often feel distant and abstract to many. Artists use their work to turn headlines, numbers, and policies into a human experience that most can connect with, fostering empathy. For example, Pablo Picasso's Guernica turns the tragedy of the Spanish Civil War into an emotional depiction of human suffering. And we also have Ben Cabsabel, which humanizes marginalized women in the Philippines and also raises awareness on the issue of poverty in our country. So it bridges the gap between lived experiences and raising public awareness. I also realized that art becomes a tool for education through engaging the viewers to become more socially aware and responsible. In order to understand the meaning behind an artwork, one must do the research on the context of it. For example, Botong Francisco's historical murals requires the viewers to have an understanding of Philippine history and culture in order to fully grasp the meaning behind it. This way encourages critical thinking. It makes people more conscious of the problems that affect communities. This develops visual literacy and it makes us pay more attention to the world around us. Through this, art challenges us to reflect and to question the issues around us. Lastly, I realized that as we become more critical and develop an eye for these social issues around us, art then becomes a call for us to take action. It prompts us to become catalyst for change. It doesn't only provide a problem, it doesn't only aim to show us a problem. Rather, it also makes us realize the role that we have in our society. For example, B-Boy Royong's Cry for Dead Whales is entirely made up of plastic and it shows the devastating effects of plastic pollution on marine life. When we see that and when we're aware of the meaning of that, we become prompted. We become prompted to move, especially when we're now aware of these issues. Then art becomes more than just expression. It becomes a starting point for dialogue, for accountability, and as well as for transformation. For the next part, as I change outfit and location, we will be moving on to my takeaways from activities outside of our class. First off, let's start with my learnings from the Getty Museum Challenge. After doing this challenge, I realized that art isn't limited to paint, pencils, but ordinary things around us can also become creative materials. When I recreated Woman in Gold by Gustav Klimt, I realized that simple things can still look elegant and expressive. Same thing happened when I also recreated the portrait of Fräulein Lieser, in which I realized that ordinary things around us, when they are thoughtfully placed, thoughtfully used, they can convey meaning, they can also capture mood, emotion, and personality. And this taught me that creativity does not come from the tools that we use, rather, with how we see and use the world around us. So, even if you don't use expensive tools, you can still create art. Second, I realized that even though we try to imitate the artworks in this challenge, art itself reflects us. It reflects our lives, our stories. Many of the artworks that we presented showed stories and historical events. For example, the painting that I chose to recreate was Woman in Gold by Gustav Klimt. And the story behind it is that it was stolen by the Nazis and then it was reclaimed by the original Jewish family. And this could symbolize identity and justice. recreating these artworks is not just about copying them, it's also about connecting with the stories and perspectives behind them, behind the artworks. And this also made me realize that art is both a mirror and a lens. Art reflects life and culture, while also it shapes our understanding of the world around us. Second, let's talk about the insights that I've gained from doing my creative response. After doing my creative response, I realized that people react to art differently and that art isn't limited to one interpretation. So after doing my response to Kath Colwitt's The Mothers, into which I imitated her art style while also changing the subject to Palestinians who are currently affected by today's war, I realized how I was influenced by the world I live in. I tried to relate it with an issue that is present in my time. And so art art triggers different responses from each and every one of us, and oftentimes these responses are affected by many factors such as personal background, emotions, moods, feelings, and imagination, and even the world we live in, the environment we're part of, the culture we are in. I also realized from doing this activity that art connects people because it acts as a dialogue between the artist and the audience. The artist expresses their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts through their artwork, and we, the audience, we respond by interpreting and reflecting on it. And so when I responded to Kath Colwitt's The Mothers, I realized that her message of war suffering relates to struggles of today, like what the Palestinians face, right? And so I also realized that even though the artwork was made a long time ago, the message remains powerful and transcends time. So like art becomes a living connection that bridges generations and brings us together with shared experiences. Next, let's talk about the insights that I've gained from my museum visits. So after visiting different museums, I realized that immersive spaces like these boost creativity, critical thinking, and understanding by letting us experience art in different forms such as music, moving images, dioramas, and even augmented reality. When I visited the AC's 12th floor exhibit, I saw art not limited to paintings but also through music, through augmented reality, through moving images. And it made me reflect on my own art style as an artist. Despite coming in different forms, they each have a story to tell about human connection, about human experiences, society, and culture. And it encourages us to look beyond what we see, but also to understand the meaning behind what we see. I also realized that while museums are relevant and necessary to today's world, their full potential is often limited by the lack of promotion and accessibility. Tools like audio guides, interactive exhibits, and AR could make these visits more engaging for the viewers and easier for them to understand. And a great example would be the one that I visited, Ayala Museum's dioramas, which was made more immersive through their audio guides and their app. And these museums could also attract more visitors by having a stronger social media presence and making clear announcement about free access. These museums do not only preserve culture and human stories, but they have the opportunity to educate us, and they only have to adapt to modern tools and strategies to reach more people. After looking back and reflecting on the insights that I've gained from our Artapri class, there are several things that this class has helped me in my development as an individual and as a member of society. It not only helped me grow as a student, but also helped me become more aware and reflective as a person. After learning about how art captures human experiences, culture, social issues, and history, it made me become more empathetic and aware of the challenges that our society faces. One of the things that Art Apri has helped me with is to become a more socially conscious person. Art Apri showed me that art reflects societal issues and hopes, and this made me become more socially aware and more willing to join conversations and advocacies about justice, culture, and human dignity. As an artist, I learned to create art that is meaningful, intentional, and sensitive to how others interpret it, using it as a voice for important issues and the marginalized communities. Artapri also helped me develop better communication and creative expression. By studying how artists express their ideas, I became better at expressing my own, may it be through writing, visuals, and storytelling. Artapri taught me to observe more closely and to also notice details and symbolisms and appreciate the beauty in everyday life. These skills will help me in communicating, collaborating, and connecting with communities, as well as living more thoughtfully beyond the classroom. And that wraps up my learnings from Art Apri. This subject didn't just teach me about art, it also taught me how to look at the world with more awareness, empathy, and curiosity. Through the modules and activities that we had, I learned that art isn't just something that we admire, it is also something that we think with, feel through, and learn from. It connects us with the past, challenges us today, and also guides us how we engage with our society. And as I continue, I will carry these lessons with me to observe more deeply, create intentionally, and use art to express meaningful ideas. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, or share your insights. Once again, this has been Jillian Patani from FTGE6. See you in the next video.